Thank you. The reason that we are here tonight and have been all week discussing ideas is because of an artist, Patrick MacGill. This artist. Patrick MacGill was a poet of the labouring classes. His writing, and I've only started to read him since I came here, but what a discovery, exposes the hypocrisy of class and church, which oppressed the poor, beat them down, and tried to keep them down. Patrick MacGill, the navvy poet, also spent time as a tramp on the road, forced to go abroad to make a living, finding little recognition as an artist in his own country until now. It is because of his work as an artist in the past that we are gathered here in the present to talk about the future. A clear indication of the power of art and its long reach. 70 speakers have gathered this week, at this point in history, to debate and exchange ideas about our society. 3 of them were artists. I am one of the 3. So I come on this, the last day of the summer school, to make the case for the arts and the artist as an intrinsic part of the cloth of our society, the weft of which will wear very thin if close attention is not paid to its immediate demise and future condition. Culture and meaning change and morph with time. What meant one thing yesterday can mean a completely other thing today, and tomorrow same. And we must move with and integrate these changes. We can only speculate, I believe, on what Yeats actually meant when he used the words, a terrible beauty. Beauty is an ever-changing concept. Terrible is a word, has moved from meaning awe-inspiring to awful. Awesome has moved from meaning inspiring to meaning cool. Cool has moved from meaning temperate to meaning hot. So we must look to and tune into the changing, metamorphosing body that is language and culture. You have to ditch this idea that art is sitting down painting. Art is now a diverse field of inquiry, and it seeps into and overlaps with every other field of endeavour you can think of, into science, into education, into justice, into technology, geopolitics, trade, tourism, inequality and diversity. Every government department and every corner of endeavour in Ireland gets a cultural input because we are all shaped by ideas. Ideas that are driven by creative thinking, which is made visible through the arts. That is how we have ended up here at the MacGill Summer School, in this laboratory of ideas. A scientist cannot come up with a theory if the imagination is not allowed free rein. Justice cannot form policy if it cannot think itself into the space of the other. How can we know how women feel if we do not hear their voices? Social change comes through what is made manifest in culture. The films, the plays, the books, the philosophy, the documentaries, the blogs, the gatherings that open our eyes and make us question what we see in front of us. Questioning, debating, disagreeing, compromising, not compromising, lobbying, the sign of a healthy, open democracy. I am in agreement with our President that it is a mistake to corral education into certain areas solely in search of worker bees for an economy rather than for a society. The wheels of that economy may turn for a short while on the backs of those workers, but where will they find the creative grease to plan and map a future economy, a future society. The STEM subjects, as they're called, science, technology, engineering and maths, are absolutely vital. Yes, they are, but they cannot progress without creative thinking. The big A that is missing from that acronym, the scarlet letter of art, which will give children the tool for a creative life in all areas. If you put the A into STEM, you get STEAM, and that's the steam that drives society. To warm it up, detoxify and invigorate it, giving people the tools with which to enrich in their present lives and embrace the bigger picture of a whole society moving forward. Because it is the creative thinkers of society that are the antenna. They're the scout bees of the hive, all the time with the eye on the future, who scope out new ways and paths, always fixed on what's out there, what's coming down the tracks. They're lightning rods for energy and discovery. I was at a lecture there in Limerick last week when Luke Gibbons referred to the 1916 rebels as artists, as the avant-garde, because, he said, they were well aware that they would die, but they knew that their ideas and aspirations would live on in a future time. And so they have. He actually said that the present hasn't caught up with the proclamation yet. So avant-garde was it. So they were tapping into the future, into the now. This is the power of ideas. That is what brings us all together here, and that is what artists do. They tap into the future. Eileen Gray, lauded now and claimed as a great Irish artist in the 21st century, what was she doing back in the 1920s in Paris with her glass and her chrome and her minimal architecture? Visualizing the future. That's what. Tapping into the now. Sometimes we do not recognize the future because the art is challenging or wild or contrary. I won't even mention Joyce and Beckett. Those artists were projecting into the future, going ahead of the crowd, scoping out new languages and art forms. So I am here today to plead that this generation will please be the one that does recognize the potential of art and creativity, the generation that does make space and time available to do the tapping of the future, the generation that does respect its artists and recognize their potential and enable them to stay in this country and make their contribution, which they are so willing and so able to do. Do you think the Broiter collar, I don't know if you know the Broiter collar in the National Museum, it's one of these golden torques from BC, it's the 1st century BC, so it's pre-Christian, but it was one of the most beautiful, so beautiful is the work on the Broiter collar that is actually hard to believe that human beings made that in 1st century BC. How long do you think it took to make that collar? Do you think it took a few months, a few years? No. That beautiful, priceless, incomparable object that we can all view in our National Museum for free, our heritage, the Broiter collar, took hundreds of years to make because the thought processes, the European influence, the experimentation, the perfecting of technique, the belief system, the patronage, all had to come together over many generations to meet at such a point of magnificence. Culture takes time, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't fall from the sky. It takes centuries of nourishment, investment and commitment from an entire society, a belief in itself, a confidence in its artists, and a plan for its progression into the next era. We were all told by the big business heads at Farmley, culture is Ireland, Ireland is culture. It is even brand Ireland. Well, that's all very well to use a brand as a survival tactic in times of emergency, but what about future Ireland, the next era from now? Innovation does not come solely from the profit motive. The driver of innovation is the kind of risk-taking and lateral thinking that is the calling card of all great artists. If we don't recognise culture as an ever-changing, transforming entity which is going to shape our future as a nation and as individuals, will there be any culture in the future? If we don't do something to recognise the work of artists in the now and help them to fuel and germinate the ground for a flowering culture going forward in time, then the future looks very bland. It is very good to invest in buildings and art centres, yes, it is, but there will be no art to go into them if societal attention and government money is not invested in education and creative practice, into the people side of the infrastructure, into preparing young people to be truly creative, and into enabling those who are already contributing to culture, often for little, as we know, or no pay, to continue to do so. You neglect art at your peril because you store up stagnation and freeze innovation. And where will that lead? To a place of mediocrity, where there will be no outstanding piece in the Museum of the Future to represent this age, no brighter collar, no Ulysses, no dragon chair, nothing but second-rate spectacle levelled out into a sameness where nothing stands out because no head reaches above the parapet. All risk is gone, challenge is gone, culture is dormant, asleep at the wheel, stuck in the past. We have to think in the long term, like our avant-garde antecedents did. We can't survive on brand Ireland from the past. We have to continue to create, make new culture, tap into a future, reimagine ourselves each generation over and over. Most young artists now are on their knees trying to pay rent, trying to just survive. Grants are drying up. Social welfare does not recognise their status, and they have the same load of new bills, including childcare, that everyone else has to pay. The VAI, Visual Artists Ireland, statistics tell us that 90% of practising artists living in this country earn less than €10,000 a year. I, like many others, came back to Ireland from the US in the 1980s, and I felt welcome here. We were all on the dole then, but at least the dole allowed us to do our plays, our exhibitions and concerts, and there was a collaborative feeling of art community, government and society all on the same page of endeavour and struggle. There was amazing cross-border cultural exchange and all-Ireland dialogue at that time, long before any political agreement was signed. Many great works were made then, and it is true to say that that time led to a great flowering in the arts and in film through the 1990s and into this century. I know I'm not saying we go backwards. We cannot do that. But don't you think we need some of that feeling again? That belief that we are in this together, that art is always a positive thing. Even when it is being negative, it is positive because it's part of a bigger picture. And in that picture, art is good in and of itself, just like people's health is good in and of itself, and justice and equality. It's not just for profit, it's a right of every citizen, and it's good for us. It's my fear that we will fall into mediocrity and lose our status as a cultural powerhouse. Not only that, but lose our ability to construct and maintain our tower of culture if we do not right now begin to support and endorse contemporary practice and thought in creative fields with practical, workable measures. Okay, we're in a post-bust era and austerity has backed us out of peril. So why then has funding not been restored to the arts to at least European norms? How do you imagine that this is the one area that can grow on nothing? Culture is not an extra, an add-on. It's not a separate department to put a flag on, as poet Anthony Cronin made clear in his recent radio interview. The arts are our heritage, our language, our fears and ideas made manifest. This manifestation is our society, connected to everything, connected to the world. Remember this. When Winston Churchill was asked why he did not cut the arts budget during the war, his answer was, then what are we fighting for? What are we fighting for? No cuts to the arts. That is what we live by. That is how we are recognised. All our ideas of freedom and tolerance are tied up in our entire culture. Fascism hates art and tries to control it and to close down the human imagination. The National Campaign for the Arts was set up in 2009 when the McCarthy report made a series of recommendations that would have devastated the cultural infrastructure of this state and had a profound consequence for arts provision in Ireland. That national campaign has done Trojan work in its many consultations with the Minister and others, and we should be truly grateful for its persistence. It has had some success in lobbying to protect funding. It has lobbied to get the word heritage reinstated in the title of the department, which was incorrectly given this morning, I think. The title of the department now is the Department of Arts, Heritage, Regional, Rural and Gaeltacht Affairs. Pardon me?
Arts wasn't even in the original title.
Arts wasn't even in the, thank you. Arts wasn't even in the original title, but heritage was taken out, So anyway, heritage is back, arts is back, yes. Regional, rural are there also, and the Gaeltacht is there too. Okay, so I am aware of Minister Humphrey's new document. It's a new framework policy document for the arts. Towards Culture 2025, and it contains many wonderful aspirations and commitments to long-term planning, which is a joy to read, but there is not firm policy on fiscal commitment. The Broiter collar was not made without gold. It is an aspirational document. Please move it on to solid fiscal targets pre-2017 budget. Please don't let it flounder and become just another aspirational policy document like the one we all heard about yesterday, the Emergency Medicine Implementation Document 2012, which was written so well it was never implemented, but both Sweden and Denmark found it such a good document that they took it and implemented it in their countries. In our country, it was put in a cupboard and never used. We have just been looking back for this year of 2016. It's time to look forward now with practical ways with which we can enable artists, the scouts of the future, to survive and communicate their ideas, to stay in this country and grow this culture, which is our heritage and responsibility. Respect the past, work in the present, and tap into the future. We have that heaven's embroidered cloth at our feet. Instead of treading on it softly or any other way, we should pick it up and look after it. We should own it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.